Hey, it's Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM, The Fan here in beautiful Hales Corners, Wisconsin. Also with our guy, Bart Winkler, filling in for Nathan Marzion. You can follow him at Bart Winkler Show. And, of course, he does his weekday show. Is it just Monday through Friday, Bart? Is that what it is, right?
Oh, God. I'm struggling to come up with content Monday through Friday.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So just
I
Friday.
ain't doing the weekends, if
All
that's
right,
what
so
you're
Monday through
asking.
Friday. You can also follow him at Winks Thinks as well. And we got lots of different things we're going to get into across the NBA. We are live streaming this. If you are watching us live streaming it here on Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock, you can catch it on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page. We're live streaming there. If you want to go check out Green and Growing Podcast there. Otherwise, it's at Sparky Radio at 1250 AM, The Fan on Twitter as well. And if Bart retweets us, you'll see it.
I did already.
Oh, thank you, Bart. Very nice of you. So that's what's going on. All right. So first, since you have not been on this podcast, I want to get your thoughts on the final three coaches under consideration for the Bucks head coaching job, and which of the three would you want to see get the job, Bart Winkler?
Okay. Are we certain that it's the final three?
Well, the Suns. This was funny
because the report from who was it? Woj?
Yeah.
He gave three names and then he said they're a part of. I'm not 100% sure that the names he gave, who was it? Atkinson, Nurse, and Griffin?
Right.
I'm not 100% sure it's going to be one of those guys.
Well, it's funny because Woj had a similar report about Phoenix. And then there was another report that followed that a little bit later in the night with more coaches added on to guys. Like Lee from the Bucks was involved in that second report for the Suns head coaching job and so forth. So Woj had like 3 or 4 guys for the Suns yesterday. And then like an hour or so later, another report came out and said, yeah, those names are right, but there's also these other names that are also involved for the Suns. But as of right now, nobody has contradicted or said that there are more guys than what Woj is reporting. So for the time being, since that's all we have, we'll go with those 3.
Well, then I guess I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know what these guys are going to do when they come in. I'm sort of anti-Nurse. I don't want, but maybe this is what they need. I don't want it to be like we had Mike Budenholzer, and I don't want it to just be like a different shade of Mike Budenholzer, where you adjust a little bit on the scale, and it's like, oh, no, it's Bud, but he does this, or it's this kind of guy, but this is different. If they're gonna fire a coach, I wanted them to go a different direction with the coach, but maybe that's not what they entirely need. It's very interesting watching the Heat do what they're doing after the Bucks fired a coach for losing to the Heat. Because now you're like, well, how far off were we? Was this just a storm that we, couldn't navigate? I still think that moving on from Bud was the right call. I think there's a lot of deficiencies that he has brought, and I mean, he won a championship, so credit. But there's been situations where with adjustments and, the regular season, I don't know if it even matters anymore.
They didn't do anything to stop Jimmy Butler, Bart. He didn't double him. He didn't put Giannis on him when he should put Giannis on him. Giannis ran over with a bus in a post-game press conference after the last game. I mean,
I'm good with that. I'm fine with them firing him. The problem is just, I don't know that all these coaches that got fired, Monty Williams got fired, Doc got fired. When Jason Kidd got fired, I was saying the burning house thing.
Yep.
And that was the house is on fire because it's so bad with Kidd that get out of the house, then you find a new house. But all of these coaches are getting fired, and then the teams are looking around, and there's no better house for sale. It's just going to be coach swap all over the place. And so for that reason, all right, let me just think of, if I get the news, how would I react? Bart, the Bucks have hired Nick Nurse. Ah, man. All right. Bart, the Bucks have hired Kenny Atkinson. Okay. The Bucks have hired Adrian Griffin. Yeah, all right. So I guess on that scale, I go Griffin, Atkinson, Nurse. I just don't want Nurse, dude. I don't.
I'm not really leaning one way heavier than the other. I understand there's a lot of Nick Nurse love out there, guys like Nick Nurse. I have my questions as far as how he would get along with the rest of these guys on this roster. Day to day, year to year, kind of going forward. His half court offense sucked last year. And that is something that people were critical of Bud of as well. Now, to his point, when he actually had a superstar, he won a championship with Kawhi Leonard. He hadn't had one since, right? He's had good players. Fred VanVleet's a good player. Pascal Siakam, good player, but not superstar type player. Take it over and design plays and let that guy go to work. You do have that in Giannis, even though he's not exactly the same as Kawhi Leonard, obviously, at the end of the day. Kenny Atkinson, I loved him with the Nets. Got shafted because of Kyrie and Durant. No surprise there. And then a brief stop with the Clippers. And then obviously in Golden State. I'm okay with Kenny Atkinson, even though he's a former Bud assistant. He's been a head coach multiple times between college, or I should say in the pros, I should say one time with the Nets. I'm okay with it. The one criticism I've seen is, well, would he be able to handle the pressure of, expectations being a championship or bust? Would he be able to deal with all of that? Because with the Nets, there were no expectations. He essentially had a rebuilding team that nobody thought could do anything, and he really developed those guys fairly well. You don't have to develop anybody here. They're all veteran guys. They're all old guys. So you don't have to do that. And then Griffin, I'm not in on Griffin. I don't know. When he was here, he was a nice guy, all that. Like, I got nothing bad to say about him. That wouldn't do anything for me whatsoever. Maybe he'll end up being a great coach. That doesn't do anything for me at the end of the day. I'm disappointed they didn't go after Chris Quinn. That was, of the guys they talked to or reportedly talked to, that would have been the guy I would have been interested in bringing him from the Miami Heat, learning under Spoelstra, not being that old a dude, can relate to players still fairly well at this point, and bringing over some of what that Heat team has, I think would have been a positive. I wanted Cassell. They didn't even interview Cassell or talk to Cassell, so that's out. Maybe Cassell ends up with a Philly job, who knows? But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. But it feels like talking to you, none of these names really do anything for you. You're not going to be jumping for joy on any of them.
Well, I don't know if there's that guy out there is the problem.
Well, I know one guy that I'm going to
these teams.
I do not want Doc Rivers under any circumstance.
Well, I don't want Doc either, and I don't want Monty. And
yes,
if we're just going to all swap coaches, like, that's the problem with, there's like the pressure that you have now to win a championship. I think we're seeing every team that did not win the title is undergoing massive changes, except for the Knicks and maybe the Kings. I think all these other teams that got bounced, either coaches are getting fired or a star is going to get traded, or, I don't know what you call Jordan Poole, but he could get traded.
Yep.
Like, there will be, if you don't win yes, it's hard to win a championship and only one team does it out of 30, but you have to do it. I mean, these guys that all got fired, Doc won 100 years ago and he still gets credit for that, but Monty was just in the finals. Frank Vogel's lost his job after being in the finals, Nick Nurse and Bud. It's like, would Steve Kerr still be the coach of the Warriors if they won 2 championships and none since? I don't know. It's like, the only way to guarantee that you're going to be a coach is to keep winning titles or be Spoelstra or Popovich. So that it's just such, like, you're either going to your point about dealing with the pressure, you're either going to have zero pressure or all the pressure. There's no in between anymore. There's just not.
Well, Spoelstra is getting people fired. That's what's happening. Because NBA owners are looking at Eric Spoelstra's team and what they're doing and going, what the hell? Mm-hmm. I've got superstars on my team and I can't get as far as him. He doesn't have a guy. He's got a really good star type player in Jimmy Butler. Yes. His second best player is out hurt in Hero. Oladipo, another vet, he's out hurt. And look at how far they're getting with that guy. And my guy, I got all this money invested in this roster and I can't even get past this dude. Like, what are we doing? We're moving on. I'm going to find somebody else. I think Spoelstra, in a weird way, is kind of part of the reason why guys are getting fired right now, because they're watching what Spoelstra is doing again. He was just in the finals in the bubble with this kind of same roster, and he's doing it again without any true superstar.
Yeah, so again, I don't know like how they're going to lock down a guy. I think that it just doesn't seem like for any of these teams there's the obvious candidate. Like, is there a Nick Nurse race? I don't know. The Suns are in on Nurse.
That's been reported to this point. The Suns are the other team. Philadelphia, I haven't heard on Philly one way or the other. There's a lot of speculation that if they're keeping Harden, they're going to go get D'Antoni to be the head coach in Philly.
I don't think they're keeping Harden.
D'Antoni hasn't had 100 jobs already. But if they keep Harden, D'Antoni makes sense. If they think Harden's walking back to Houston to go play for the Rockets again, then who knows? Then I have no idea. I think Bud would make sense in Philly. The problem is Bud hasn't been mentioned for any of these jobs. None. Like Phoenix, his name didn't come up for the Phoenix job. Doc's name's in that Phoenix conversation. Nick Nurse, Kenny Atkinson, all the guys. Bud's not mentioned in any of them. I wonder if Bud has just said, I'm going to take a year off and fish and relax, and I'll come back in a year. I mean, they haven't reported that's what Bud is doing, but I am genuinely surprised that Bud has not been in play for any of these jobs yet.
Let me ask you this, Steve. Had the Bucks not fired Bud yet, if they were like going to fire him today, if that was the plan, like give it some time, then we'll fire him.
Right.
Would they still fire him after seeing what the Heat have done?
Yeah.
You still think so?
Giannis. If I'm upsetting Giannis by saying this, I don't really care. He got him fired. That post-game press conference got that dude fired. There is no question.
But then why doesn't Giannis say that to Bud earlier? Why doesn't he take over and just do it?
I agree. I've said the same thing on this podcast. I'm sick of I just do what coach says. And if coach tells me not to guard Jimmy Butler, then I'm not going to guard Jimmy Butler.
Win the other night because Marcus Smart started taking over as the coach.
Yes.
So why can't Giannis do that? I don't understand how Giannis is all-time great competitor, but then all you have to do is put a guy on the sideline and say, that's the coach. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll listen to go be Giannis, man. I don't get that.
Nope, I totally agree with you. And it's very, very frustrating at the end of the day. Now, let's move on to topic number 2. This here is a tweet from Magic Johnson. And I got to tell you something here. Magic Johnson always has something, right? Tell me if you agree with this statement. Talking about Jokic in Denver. The Joker is changing the game of basketball right before our very eyes, much like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, LeBron, Steph, Kobe, Kareem, and Shaq. Do you think the Joker is changing the game like the guys he mentioned in that tweet? And let me first say that I don't believe Kobe changed a damn thing. So I don't agree with that. I don't believe Larry Bird changed a damn thing. So I don't agree with that. Michael, fine. LeBron, okay. Steph certainly did. Shaq dominated, I guess. Kareem to a degree. But does he belong in those conversations with those guys? Is he that guy? Changing the game of basketball is how he phrased it. He's not saying he belongs on a Mount Rushmore with any of these guys. He's saying he's changing the game. Like, I mean, what's he doing to change the game? That's what I don't see it. I don't get it.
One thing I wish that I could change about myself is the amount of things that shouldn't bother me that break me. In sports, like, I don't like the Heat, but Jason Tatum, I don't want the Celtics to win. When Jason Tatum hits a 3, every announcer from the end of time pretends like it's a 7-point shot. Like,
right.
It's just a 3, big deal.
Yep.
Jokic, the narrative around him is like, if you didn't think that he should have win the unanimous MVP this year, you are a jerk. I don't know. There's too many people that have too much to prove trying to make Jokic. I don't think he's changed the game. He's very good at the game.
Yes.
He is a big man that has excellent passing skills, that can shoot. We've seen that, haven't we?
Okay, so let's say this.
I mean, we're getting one of those number 1 overall pick. What right. That guy's gonna be? Oh. He used to be fat. Who cares?
Yeah, that's true. He was, yeah. But let's look at it this way. He says, Magic Johnson says, change the game. If I took those guys that we mentioned, I could envision or remember kids out in their driveway, right? Kobe taking a shot, right? And acting like Steph Curry or hanging out their tongue.
There
ain't
one kid on this planet.
But acting like they're Michael Jordan and with their tongue hanging out or whatever, right? I can kind of picture all of that. Are people in their outside in their yard, Joker, and
no,
this from behind their head?
That's the only way. The only way you're saying Joker is if you like put up a bad shot and it goes in. You'll be like, I Jokic that one, didn't I? No one's trying to be him.
I don't think so either. And I know we're sounding like we're being mean, but I'm just being honest. Like, I just don't think kids are watching this and going, I want to be like that dude. Like, I don't think that's a thing. I really don't. For whatever the reason. I don't know, man.
And I think, hot take, he's getting a little too much credit for that series.
Well, Jamal Murray's been amazing.
Yeah, and then Caldwell Pope won them game 3.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. I mean, Jokic.
He's going to be finals MVP. More than likely, they face Miami. Miami's not beating that team.
Jokic, I mean, who's better? Who's in the conversation with Jokic for best player? Giannis and who? Anyone? LeBron? Steph?
Well, Joel Embiid, he just won MVP.
I'm glad he won MVP.
I don't really care. One way or the other. Doesn't really matter to me. And good job by the Joker to deflect that and say, people are being mean about Embiid winning MVP. He deserved it. He played really well. Whatever. And I heard, who was it? Frank Isola, I think it was, said, and he's a big Lazary guy. So he was saying that he would have voted for Giannis had Giannis played more games. And that truly at the end of the day, he gave it to Embiid just because he played more games than the other guys and was more available for his team throughout the course of the year. And for him, how can I vote for a guy for MVP and play 62 games or whatever it was that Giannis played throughout the year? That's why Isola said that he didn't vote for him at the end of the day. And I wonder if that's why other people voted for Embiid as well. Everybody wants to get into advanced stats and metrics and numbers and everything else. But at the end of the day, it just might have been, it was more available and more healthy than the rest of them.
Shout out to Frank Isola, by the way. He's been covering the league for a long time. New York guy.
NBA radio in the morning. With,
all over on a national scale. He helped me out once when I at a Bucks Knicks game. I didn't get sound. My microphone was screwed up.
Sure.
And I'm like, can I get this from you? And he looked at me like, I got to deal with this again. Yes. What's your email?
Sure. And he got it.
But he gave it to me.
Nice. All right. Good. Didn't see that story coming. All right. Good.
No, I said something nice about someone.
Yeah. That's really good. That's why you're on Green and Growing. We bring out the positivity in Bart Winkler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So we both agree that the Joker is not changing anything. Okay. Next one. This is George Karl, former Milwaukee Bucks head coach. I want to see what you think about this. George Karl, this was last night. Let's cut out the ring culture BS. Only 11% of NBA players and 10% of NBA coaches ever won a championship. Guys like Ewing, Barkley, Stockton, Grant, AI, Vince, Melo, Nash, and Elgin Baylor never did. All of them plus many more are still winners and should be recognized as that, says George Karl on social media. Now, Ronnie McLaughlin, who's now, of course, out in Sacramento doing sports talk radio, has always been anti-ring and doesn't think it really matters at the end of the day when you're comparing players one way or the other as far as that should be held against quarterbacks that don't win a championship and so forth. We've had that argument a million times. Bart Winkler, I don't know if I know your take on this. Do you agree or disagree with George Karl?
I don't know if I know my take either. I'm doing
because like Barkley's on TV and Shaq all the time just pokes fun at the fact he don't have a ring. Man, you didn't win a championship. Get out of here. I mean, he always brings it up. So I think if you have a ring, it means a lot more. And then the guys that don't have a ring tend to always lean towards the side of, man, it shouldn't mean that much. Man, I had a Hall of Fame career. I'm in the Hall of Fame. And you all keep bringing up I didn't win a championship. It shouldn't matter. So I think it depends who it is. If it's a guy that has a ring, it means everything. If a guy doesn't have a ring, then he tries to spin it and tell you it doesn't mean anything.
But I think the NBA right now is telling you that it does mean something. I mean, just what we talked about with all these coaches getting fired if they're not making it means something. I wonder, like, what would Kevin Durant's career be like if he joined the NBA in 1979?
Sure.
He would be on one team for 15 years. And then if he didn't have a ring and there was free agency, he might go like, I'll play here for a little bit. But now he's defined by it. Like his whole, he says he doesn't care about legacy, yet every move he's ever made has been in response to rings culture.
For sure.
The winning, I don't know. When you belittle ring culture, you're belittling winning a championship, which is the whole point of doing this. Like, I wonder, so the NBA is going to do this in-season tournament, and they're going to have a champion in that. And what's it going to matter to anybody? Like, especially to a fan. It's not going to matter to me. But then I think, well, what does it matter if we win the title? Like, we win the title, that's cool, but why? It doesn't, like, I'm glad they were why does it like really matter to me? I am happy because I choose to be happy, because I think that's something that I want. I look at Steph Curry, who looks so bummed and insanely upset when they missed the playoffs. He already has 4 rings, and he's still driven, all the money, all the whatevers. He's still driven to win. I think that belittling ring culture.
How did you do that one? Just disappeared right off the screen. That is wild stuff right there.
Belittling ring culture is, it's a loser excuse. I don't know. There's still people that have very good careers. Like, Dan Marino, Charles Barkley, whatever you say, all these guys. You can have a great career without winning a championship. But in every one of those years, Dan Marino's goal wasn't, I want to throw for 5,000 yards. It was, I want to win a championship. I don't know. I think, I think more so it's people that belittle ring culture. I don't like that phrase. It's not ring culture. It's just they want to win it. What is so wrong with wanting to win a championship?
Nothing. But let me ask you this. So Brett Favre has 1 ring. Aaron Rodgers has 1 ring. He was to 1 Super Bowl. Favre was to 2. Bart won numerous. If Jordan Love comes in, and I know this is a Bucs podcast, but for this argument, I'm going to use Packers. If Jordan Love comes in and wins two rings, they win 2 Super Bowls, but doesn't throw for as many yards as either one of them, doesn't throw for as many touchdowns as either one of them, but ends up with 2 Super Bowl rings, 2 championships, are Packer fans going to say, statistically, he's not as good, but damn, he won 2 Super Bowls. I'd rather have him over the other 2.
Well, it depends. Like, I'd rather have Rodgers over Eli Manning, but Eli's got 2. It depends, like, how much of a contributor he was towards that. I still think one of the worst arguments in sports is saying that LeBron's finals record, what is it? It's 4-6 or something.
I don't know what it is.
4 and like it's Jordan's is 6-0.
Did not lose. Joe Montana never lost in the Super Bowl. Brady has.
But so if you're going to argue that, you're not arguing like basically the NBA does not, and NBA fans do not count Jordan in the 80s because he never got to a finals.
No.
And every year he failed, it's not held against him. For
Correct.
LeBron, he takes absolute garbage teams there.
To Cleveland, the first Cleveland team to the finals.
And then he goes up against one of the greatest teams ever.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't win every time, and it's held against him.
Yep.
I don't know. I think there's a big difference between losing in the finals and not getting there.
And the other thing is the era we live in. You didn't have sports talk on TV when Jordan was playing in the 80s to be criticized and talked about and so forth. And he didn't have a microscope under him 24/7 like all these players do now, whether it be on social media or wherever else.
How does he not get criticized more for how bad of an owner he is?
Who?
Jordan.
Oh, yeah. Nobody talks about it.
If LeBron James took over the Charlotte Hornets and for 10 years they were as bad as Jordan's, no one would, everyone would destroy him constantly. But Jordan gets this immaculate pass because nobody could watch TV in the 90s except for Jordan games.
But remember, Jordan has talked about it before. He never talked politics. He never talked about anything outside of his game. Because as he put it, doesn't matter what political party you're in, you buy basketball shoes. I'm not saying nothing. And stayed out of the fray and didn't get in the middle of it. LeBron does not care. He's going to give you a take on something if you ask him a question because he's a human being and he's got opinions.
LeBron
and he's
is
going to
a
give you his
massive
opinion.
dork, though.
What?
LeBron, he's trying to argue against trademarking Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah,
3 years ago, he tried to trademark Taco Tuesday.
Yes, but my point is Jordan never really offered an opinion on anything outside of the NBA.
I don't know that matters to this.
Well, when you start talking about Jordan getting a free pass, there's really no hostilities built up by anybody on Michael because Michael's never said or done anything to piss anybody off.
But his career also went the way of a movie. He had all the struggles in the first 2 acts, and then all he did was win championships, except for when he came back in '95, and he never went to the playoffs with the Wizards. But
he was still pretty good with the Wizards.
But what history knows is struggle, beat the bad guy.
Right.
You know what I was saying the other day on my show when we got heated about this, and it was kind of like being a jerk, but also, when did Jordan start winning? When Larry Bird's back gave out and when Magic Johnson had to retire from HIV.
And Scottie Pippen showed up.
Yeah, and the Pistons crumbled. When all the obstacles were gone.
I mean, you think about it, he had Doug Collins. And Doug Collins, all these years later, you know him as the guy that can get you to a certain spot, but can't get you over the hump. And Phil Jackson was the guy that came in and finished. Phil Jackson with the Lakers came in and finished that deal where Del Harris was. So he became the finisher. And that's why when you start talking about these NBA head coaches that are out there right now, is Monty Williams like Doug Collins? Is he a guy that can get you to point B and can't get you over the hump? Thibodeau is. That's who I think Tom Thibodeau is with the Knicks. He's a guy that can get you, make you a playoff team, make you good, but he can't figure out how to finish with his teams. And there are a lot more of those guys than there are guys that are finishers. The Detroit Pistons thought Rick Carlisle was that guy. So they fired him and hired Larry Brown, won a championship. Turns out Rick Carlisle was not that guy. Carlisle went to Dallas and won a championship, but that's what Detroit thought they had in Carlisle. So they moved to a guy that they knew could win. And now when you start talking about,
I can't turn this, I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
It's a phone.
It's my computer phone.
You have a computer phone?
Well, they're connected. It's iMac.
Oh, I'm glad I don't have it. That's all right. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. So either way, my point on all of this is coaches are very important to superstars and how well they play one way or the other. And we talk about Spoelstra and so look at George Karl. There's another one. George Karl, damn good teams in Seattle, couldn't get over the hump. Had good team in Milwaukee, couldn't get over the hump. Denver, good team, couldn't get over the hump. The guy that's talking about cutting out ring culture, and I'm a huge George Karl guy. The guy that's cutting out ring culture is the same guy that couldn't get his teams over the hump and win an NBA championship at the end of the day.
Yeah, it'd be like if I was to hear and tell you that I don't think ratings matter.
Yes. Well, of course they matter. I mean, to some people, other people don't even subscribe to ratings, so it doesn't really matter to them. All right. Got one more here. And this came from your show, the Bart Winkler.
Yeah, this annoyed me.
This came from Tom, I believe, on Twitter. If starting the NBA from scratch, he asked, would you take Eric Spoelstra, in the first round over some of these NBA All-Stars from this year? I changed the question a little bit. If starting the NBA from scratch, do you draft a head coach or a general manager in the first round of this redraft of the entire league? So in this made-up scenario that we have, you are simply drafting anybody you want. Could be a GM, could be a coach, president of basketball operations if you want. Want to draft Brad Stevens in the first round, have at it. You want or Pat Riley in the first round. Players, all of that comes into play. Wembanyama is eligible. Okay, we'll put all these guys in the draft this year. They can be eligible and so forth. And don't forget, Green and Growing Podcast available on your Odyssey app and wherever you download your favorite podcast at. So make sure to tell your friends. Normally, Nathan Marzion and myself, he is off today. He'll be back next week. Okay, Bart Winkler. So curious, do a head coach or a GM make it into your first round in the NBA? So we're talking, 30 picks in the first round. Are there 30 players better than the best coach or GM, or how do you value those guys versus a player at the end of the day?
Yeah, Tom was responding. Paul Emmig had asked the question, and it was aimed at Spoelstra because he wanted to know where you would draft Spoelstra. Yep. And Paul he said he'd only take 12 or 15 players ahead of Spoelstra. And I said, I will go 11 rounds of players before I even think about drafting a coach.
What did you say?
I will take 11, 12, 13 players.
Before
I even think about a coach.
Oh, no. Where I thought we were going to agree on this, but apparently not.
Oh, Spoelstra, he's getting way too much credit.
No, I don't think he is. I think
this is a Jimmy Butler run. This is not an Eric Spoelstra run.
Yes. Because if Eric Spoelstra wasn't the coach, this basketball team wouldn't be where they are right now. Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA, period. I don't think it's
But I would
debatable.
still take I would take players over coach.
Sure. I think you take superstars over coach. Agreed, right? So LeBron, even though he's
let me do this. Middleton or coach?
Middleton.
Drew or coach?
Drew.
Brooke?
Because of who he is, Brooke.
Bobby?
No. Coach.
So now you're taking coaches.
Yeah, Brooke Lopez is just different. And most of the centers in the NBA, I would take coach.
But who are even the good coaches? Who's a good coach?
Well, there's only going to be a few that you're going to take really high at this point. Malone, I think, is one of those guys. I think Spoelstra
I can't
is one.
stand that guy.
I love him. Malone is one of those guys. Spoelstra is one of those guys. Kerr, we don't know. I think Kerr is, but until Kerr gets out of there and has to do it again somewhere else, I don't know. That was the nice thing about Phil is he did with Chicago, and then you're like, well, was it all Michael? And then he went to LA, and they're like, whoa, it's all Shaq and Kobe, and he doesn't get any credit. Whatever. To be able to be a psychologist the way he had to be in order to get both of those teams to play at a high level so they didn't kill each other. Look at Boston. They had to have a team meeting. Jaylen Brown said they had a team meeting after game 3 to kind of clear the air and galvanize themselves together. I've never in my life heard of a team having to have a team meeting in a playoff scenario. Like, never. And then it's a playoff scenario in which you're going to the finals if you win. You have to have a team meeting to clear the air? Like, how bad was the chemistry in that locker room? How badly screwed up was everything that you have to call a team meeting? That's where I think the good coaches are king. Pat Riley was king because he was a master motivator. He understood how to make it work. Bill Parcells was as good as Bill Parcells was because he was a master motivator. He knew how to get certain guys going by doing different things, right? That's, to me, is almost as important, if not more important, than the whole X's and O's thing when it comes to being a coach. And you're right. There aren't a lot of those guys probably in the NBA
So what would happen
anymore.
What would happen is if this happened, there might be 3 coaches taken in the first round. Spoelstra might go, Kerr might go, Pop might go.
Yeah.
And then I think Paul also brought up, like, it'd be like tight end in fantasy. You would take Gronk in the first round because you had to, but then another tight end doesn't go till round 10.
Yeah, it could,
so you
for
either
sure.
choose to get one of the coaches right away. Otherwise, you're just going to stack up on, and I would be a guy that's stacked up on players.
I would love to sit down with the general manager and have him write down on a sheet of paper in order who he thinks the best coaches are. And then 1 through 30, then take another pen or marker, the different color, and have him draw tiers on the paper of how it all breaks up. So here's tier 1. It's these 2 guys or 3 guys or 1 guy, whatever it may be. And then here's tier 2, the next 6 guys. And then here's tier 3. And then here's everybody else after that. They're all relatively the same. I'd love to get an NBA personnel perspective, player perspective, as far as how good they think the coaches are. Because if you don't know this, I'm here to tell you. Every scout, every general manager, everybody involved in player personnel is as critical of a coach and more critical of a coach than you as a fan are of your favorite team. It's a fact. All of them. They all talk to each other. They all complain and gripe about their coach. Why isn't he doing this? He's not using this guy right. We got him for this reason. He's not using him here. They all think they can do it better than the coach. All of them. They all have that mentality in their brain that they know better than the head coach, who the owner or GM put in place in order to do this. And then sometimes the GM himself gets mad at the coach and loses and pulls out his hair because he doesn't think the coach is doing it the right way. So if there's going to be anybody that's going to be critical of really giving you a fair assessment of how these coaches should line up in the NBA, again, I think you could pull any scout, any GM in the NBA anonymously, don't say what their name is, and let them go through, rank them, and then draw the tiers. I'd love to see where Doc Rivers is. Would love to see. Is he in the upper class? Is he in the middle? How good do they think he is? Budenholzer, where is he? Great regular season coach. Maybe not great playoff coach, even though he's got a championship. You know, Doc Rivers, another one. Great regular season coach. Playoff coach? Horrible. Like, in this last series, they didn't lose because of him necessarily. They lost because James Harden and Embiid stunk at the end, and Harden shrunk again when it counted at the end of the day.
It's just how often do you see these playoff runs and you're like, at the end of this, we're not going to be like, oh my God, the buttons that Michael Malone pushed.
No,
We're gonna
maybe
be saying,
not.
oh, Jokic is changing the game.
But I get the sense, maybe I'm wrong. I just get the sense that these dudes would like run through a wall for this dude. That's kind of the sense I get. And he's got that old school personality that he's going to stick up for his guys. You've seen him go at the media about stat padding and that dumb Kendrick Perkins comment that he had. He's still not letting that go. He brought that up again in the last post game presser.
He's got to stop doing that. He is.
Oh, I love it. Because all it's doing.
Denver is handling this worse than we did in Milwaukee.
No. Malone's doing it the right way. Malone is saying, bring it all here. I'll take all I'll bring it all to me. I don't want y'all talking to Joker about this crap or Jamal Murray, whatever else. You just come at me, make me the bad guy, and let my players focus. That's what he's doing. Now, George Karl was kind of like that, but George would also create the drama between the players and himself and make it a big soap opera because for whatever reason, that's the world George liked to live in.
Well, Denver shouldn't have sports teams because of the altitude. I just want to get that back out there.
What? Why?
They're too high. They're too high. It's unfair.
Why is it unfair?
It's some players will die if they play in that altitude.
Nobody's going to die. Stop it. Don't stop. You're crazy. No, absolutely not. No.
Denver shouldn't have sports.
No. All right. One last topic. I lied. I had one more. Carmelo Anthony retired. How will he be remembered, Bart Winkler?
Well, he doesn't have a ring.
Nope. Got a college ring. College championship with Syracuse.
See, Melo was one of those guys that I always loved. I don't know that Melo ever hit his ceiling, though, right? Was there more that could have happened with him?
I think that's a guy that you think should have won a championship at some point. I don't know. I always viewed Carmelo as a selfish basketball player. That's how I always.
Well, sometimes it's not. Again, this is my Draymond Green thing. Is that Draymond Green in 900 timelines is a middle of the road NBA player and plays for 10 years, and maybe he's good, maybe he's not. He got drafted at the perfect time in the perfect system to have the absolute maximum career that he could.
I was on the game in San Francisco. I was on the game in San Francisco. Was it last Friday? I think it was last Friday. And they asked me about Draymond. And I said, I don't think he's still in the league if he would have been drafted by a handful of other teams. If he's in Detroit, he's gone. He's not in the league anymore. There's no chance. He got drafted in
China playing.
He got drafted in a perfect situation for him. That role that they asked him to do, he could do and do it to perfection. He would have been just a forgotten dude that came out of Michigan State had he gone about any other team in the NBA at that point. It was a perfect situation. Not everybody. Like, for instance, Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers goes to the Niners and it's not Alex Smith, no chance he has a Hall of Fame career.
No chance.
No
he
chance.
Threw like an idiot.
Zero chance. Right. Coming from Tedford. There's no chance, man. It's a Hall of Famer. Zero. Alex Smith went through a different offensive coordinator every year for like the first 4 years. There's no way any quarterback is going to be successful in that whole scenario. None. So
Melo was always so good, though. Like, maybe he had too much. He was so good on those Olympic teams. Anytime he was on an Olympic team, he was like, but then he didn't have to be the guy.
But he never had a Durant situation where he had stars around him. He was never surrounded
like the best player he ever played with.
Who was the best player he ever played with?
I don't know.
Those George Karl Nuggets teams were pretty good. I have to go back and look see who on those teams. But
I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question I asked.
He never had a Wade and a Bosh. He never got that luxury. He never had a Kyrie. He never really ever, during the prime of his career, ever had that other stud to play with them. LeBron went and recruited guys and made teams get him star players to play with. Melo really never got to that. He never had Shaq, right? I mean, Wade had Shaq. Even though Shaq was at the very end, he still had Shaq and won a ring without LeBron early on in Wade's career. Carmelo really never had those guys that were in their prime around him. Now, whether that be bad luck, whether that be guys didn't want to play with him, no idea. But he never was given that luxury to see if he could win it.
Check this out. I just looked this up. So this is the guys that he won the most games with in his career. the guy that he won the most games with while a teammate was 309 wins with J.R. Smith, 235 wins with Nene,
Hilario.
224 with Kenyon Martin.
That was probably the best player he played with.
202 with Marcus Camby. And 168 with Linus Kleza.
Sure. I
played
think
with Westbrook for a little bit. Porzingis, he was with Lillard when he was there.
Yeah, but he was old by the time he got to Portland and played with Lillard.
He played with Steve Novak when he wasn't trying to get books banned from libraries.
That was in New York, right? Yeah.
He played with Dwight, but these are just for a little bit.
Right. No,
Anthony
so probably
Davis.
the best player he played with was probably Kenyon Martin. That was probably the best guy he played with.
Consistently.
Yeah. And then compare that to LeBron or Curry, what they've played with. Like, I'm sorry.
One game with Thanasis.
Yeah, he never, ever had those guys. I mean, I think you could argue Giannis has had a better surrounding cast than what Carmelo Anthony did when he was playing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah,
No
again, going back to that ring culture thing, he'll never be in the conversation with those other guys like Wade and LeBron and Kobe and all those guys. He'll never be in that conversation, but he was a damn good basketball player. He was, no question about it. Bart Winkler, thanks a lot for coming on Green and Growing, my friend. What's the latest Bart Winkler show about that people can go and download today?
Well, we are doing a live Brewers post game on this fine Wednesday. I'm talking to you.
Good luck.
Who do I have in the can? Oh, I've got I'm gonna be chatting with Jeff Levering at some point very, very, very
nice.
soon.
Good job.
And then there'll be another episode out soon where we talk about the Packers Mount Rushmore.
Again, for the millionth time in Wisconsin Sports Talk Radio history.
No, because okay, give me a minute here. Because Mark Murphy's had a great career, and this draft is huge. And I'm like, are we in Mount Rushmore category? We're not. But then we were talking about who should be on the Mount Rushmore, and then we've pulled it. Curly Lambeau is the number one guy on the Mount Rushmore, if not number two. But I can't find anyone to agree with me.
No, I don't know.
He was a coach for 30 years. He saved the team. He was
I understand. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's fascinating. Mark Murphy.
Well, I went with Lambeau, Lombardi, Starr, and Favre.
Ooh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think
for Bucks, we got in a headache with the Bucks, so I went Giannis in a road jersey, Giannis in a home jersey, Kareem in a road jersey, Kareem in a road jersey.
I think Starr and Lombardi absolutely are on the Mount Rushmore for the Packers. And then after that, you can have your conversation. I hear the Lambeau thing. That makes sense. I don't think he'd be there for me, but that would obviously make sense. All right, it's Bart Winkler Show, CBS Sports Radio, always filling in on CBS Sports Radio. Do we know when you're filling in next that people can hear on 1250 AM The Fan?
Pretty consistently Sundays 1 to 5. So
you will
maybe
not hear that on The Fan. We have BetQL Radio.
Memorial Day, I'm in for Gelb.
Oh, Monday. Oh, all right, good. Yeah, that'll be fun. All right, I'll give it a listen.
That's where I am. I'm back on the no one else wants to do it shift.
That's okay. Take that money.
I'll take it.
He is Bart Winkler. Follow him at Bart Winkler Show or at Wings Thinks. And of course, I'm Sparky Fifer, normally with Nathan Marzian. He'll be back next week. Don't forget, download this on your Odyssey app or wherever you download your favorite podcast at. It was a pleasure, as always, hanging out with Bart Winkler. Have a good rest of your day. Toodles.